Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 7th grade faith formation. Our lesson for today is the art show, and our question is, does God exist? And today we're diving a little bit deeper into the question of God's existence. And last week we talked about God as the inventor, God as the creator who had this idea to create us. And this week we're talking about God as the artist who creates this beautiful world that we live in and makes it his masterpiece. And so a question that I want to put forth to you today is, how do we know God exists? How do we know? Can we know? The answer is yes. And we can use certain tools available to us to answer this question. And these tools are science, philosophy, logic, emotion, and faith. Some people think that we can only believe in things that we can scientifically prove. But that's not the case. We have all these other tools available to us. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about the interplay between, so the way that faith and science relate to and complement one another. So faith. What is faith? Is faith only the religious denomination, the group that I belong to? No, faith is so much more than that. And the Bible tells us in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, that faith is confident assurance concerning what we hope for and conviction about things we do not see. Okay, whoa, there's a lot of big words and phrases in there, right? But if we break it down, we can see that faith is confident assurance. It's a deep conviction. It's a strong belief concerning what we hope for. What is it that we hope for? We hope for God, heaven, eternal life, and we hope that those things that we believe in that we cannot see, that they are real. So we have this faith, this deep belief in the things that we cannot understand through our five senses. And then from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, faith is a theological virtue, so it's a virtue, one of the greatest, by which we believe in God and believe all that He has said and revealed to us because He is truth itself. So God is truth, and everything that He says we believe in. We believe in because we believe in God. So to sum up, faith is believing in something that you cannot scientifically or conclusively prove. And there's actually a lot of things in our day-to-day life that we believe in that science can't prove. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. But first, I want to point out that kids have a lot of questions, right? Think about a kindergartner, first, second grader. Maybe you have a younger brother, sister, or cousin. And kids are always asking questions. They're always seeking to understand. They're always seeking knowledge. They're seeking the answer to these questions. I had a little cousin who her favorite question was why, and everything was why. And, sometimes I just wanted to say there just isn't a why all the time. But she always wanted to know. She always wanted to know more. And sometimes as we get older, we stop asking these important questions. And that's not always a good thing because, sometimes we think, oh, well, this is going to make me look stupid, or I don't want to ask this question, or I think I know everything. But asking questions is a really, really good thing. And the answers to some questions are simple, some are complex. Both can be understood despite their simplicity or complexity. But the answers to some questions are mysteries, that we can have some evidence of the answer, but ultimately we just need to accept that the answer is what it is, despite the fact that we can't put it under a microscope and measure it. So one of these questions is, does God exist? The answer to this is yes, He does exist. But can we see Him? Can we feel Him? Can we experience Him with our five senses? Can we put Him under a microscope and measure Him? No, we can't. And this is where our faith comes in. And faith and science, they work together. They're complementary to one another. Think of some other complementary things like peanut butter and jelly, right? They just wouldn't be the same without the other. Faith gives us evidence, helps us to believe in the metaphysical world, so the world that we can't understand with our five senses, while science helps us to understand the world that we can understand with our five senses, or the physical world. So think for a moment about what you learn in science class, right? It's all about the measurable, the physical, things that you can look at, feel, hear, understand. Things like animals, plants, the world, the rocks, the trees, all these things. We understand these with our five senses, and we can measure them specifically. And science is fantastic. It's great, and we really need it, right? But can it answer anything and everything? Every question that we have, can we just look to science to answer it? And the answer to this question is no. We need to use our other tools. And W. Edwards Deming said that the most important things in life cannot be measured. They can't be understood through science. We can't put them under a microscope and look at them. And in your day-to-day life, think about this. Think about things like emotions, things like love, how much your parents or your friends or your siblings love you, and how much you love them in return. These things are so important to our lives, and yet we can't understand them scientifically and we can't measure them. So if there's things like emotions, things like love, that cannot be measured by science, then science can't be the only tool that we use to answer our questions. And again, this is where faith comes in. And faith is equal to trust. Faith means trusting. Faith means believing that even though I can't prove this conclusively or scientifically, I still choose to believe in it. In Latin, this connection between faith and reason, faith and science, is understood as fides et ratio. And it means that faith and reason work together, they complement one another to reveal things that the other can't reveal. So again, reason, science, can't reveal truths about the metaphysical world, just as faith cannot reveal scientific truths. We need them both. So again, getting back to our tools, we have all of these tools at our disposal, but we have to use our tools properly. Right? We can't try and use faith to understand scientific things. For instance, think of a surgeon about to perform heart surgery. We don't want him going in there on faith, not understanding the science behind it, right? But we also don't want that same surgeon to try to explain truths about heaven, God, and our souls using science, because that's simply impossible, because science can only measure what we can experience with our five senses. Does that mean that there's nothing beyond the measurable scientific world? No. It just means we need to use other tools to investigate those things. So faith. We use our faith. We accept the evidence of God's existence with our faith. We can use science, logic, and philosophy to discover facts about God, to look at the world around us and see evidence of a good, knowledgeable, reasonable creator. Yet we must accept these facts in faith. We must use our faith to believe that these are all signs pointing towards God. I'm going to tell you a little story here to close, a story about doubting Thomas. And this is in the Bible, in the New Testament, after Jesus rose from the dead, right, Easter Sunday. And Jesus rose from the dead, and he appeared to his disciples, his closest friends. But Thomas wasn't there. Jesus left, and Thomas came back, and all the other disciples were like, "Hey, Thomas, guess what? This is really exciting. Jesus rose from the dead." And Thomas is like, I don't know. I don't believe it. And the other disciples are like, "But Thomas, remember, before he died, he told us he was going to rise from the dead, and we saw him. We saw him. He was here. We know that he rose from the dead." And Thomas is like, "Unless I can touch him with my hands, and I can put my fingers in the nail marks where they nailed him to the cross, and I can know that this is Jesus who was crucified, I will not believe you." So a couple days pass, and guess who shows up again? Jesus comes back. And this time, Thomas is there. And Thomas falls to his knees, and he says, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus said, "Thomas, touch my hands, put your fingers in the nail marks, see that this is me." And then he says to him, "Did you believe in me because you saw me?" Thomas, blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. And Jesus and the other disciples, they weren't asking Thomas to believe that Jesus had rose from the dead without offering him any proof or giving him any evidence. They had seen him, and Jesus had said that he would rise from the dead. They were just asking Thomas to accept these facts as evidence that, yes, Jesus did rise from the dead, as he said that he would. And it's the same with us. We're asked to accept this evidence in faith and believe that what God has revealed to us is true. So how does this all relate to our discussion of purpose from last week? Well, if we can know God, and if we can believe in God and accept all of the evidence that he gives us for his existence in faith, then we can find our purpose. We can find what he put us here for, and we can have meaning in our lives. And finally, isn't it better to believe in a loving creator and a supreme, powerful God who loves you, who's looking out for you, and who has a specific purpose in mind for you? Isn't that better than going through life believing that there's nothing outside this world and no one beyond it who cares about you? I personally hope that you choose to believe in this reality, and also that you learned something from this talk, and that maybe it brought up some questions and some thoughts that you hadn't thought of before. So if that's the case, you can leave them in the comments, or you can send them directly to me over Flock Notes, and I'll try to address them. All right, God bless everyone. Have a wonderful week.